Go ahead and purge it too. Oh, did you puncture it?
Yes.
And then open it. And then purge it a little bit. Let me do this so the can it'll shoot.
Yeah, the red one's hot as hell.
Good? What's up guys? Today we're going to change out the compressor on Gabe's 2000 Civic Si. Recently his compressor went bad and so the AC is no longer working. So we're going to change out the compressor. We're also doing the receiver dryer, expansion valve underneath the dash on the evaporator core, and we're putting a new condenser. I've already had the tools. I have a vacuum pump that I've used in the past for other AC jobs, and the AC manifold set so we can go ahead and pull vacuum on the system before properly filling it with the refrigerant. On the system, we're going to start first also by changing all of the O-rings on the entire system. So what Gabe is working on first is going to remove the front bumper. Handful of hardware across the front of the bumper. Just need to pop up those clips. Then on the sides, depending on what you have, if your car is still OEM, it should be a screw up here on the top of the fender. Now on the bottom of Gabe's car, it doesn't have a lot of the plastic covering any longer. It just has the ones for the bumper. So depending on your specific vehicle, you'll need to remove some of that covering if it's attached to the bumper, so that way you can get the bumper pulled off. Gabe's system still has a little bit of refrigerant left in it. So we're going to properly hook up all the hoses and the gauges. That way we can evacuate the rest of the refrigerant. When hooking these up, the blue automatically fits on the low pressure side. The red fitting fits on the high pressure side. You're going to run these to the same colored fittings on the gauge set itself. Once it's hooked up, go ahead and start the car, turn on the AC full blast. You can open up all of the fittings. You can see what pressure reading you're at. For the low side, we're about 28. High side looks like about 175. We're going to look up the readings right now and see if those are within spec. And with those readings that we had, the being below 30 and the above 150 on the high side means it was low, it was undercharged. System had lost some of the refrigerant. Gabe had taken the car to the shop and they checked it, and it was actually Pep Boys. And they were showing him where the compressor was leaking a little bit of the refrigerant slowly. So that's why he still has some refrigerant in the system. So now we're just going to go ahead and drain it. We're going to drain it out through the yellow line, put it into a container that we can just close off. And what you'll do is close off both of these, remove the line, and make sure you put it into a container where you can catch the refrigerant. And so now we're just going to go ahead and start taking apart everything we need to get to the compressor and the condenser. We're going to start with the condenser first just because of the ease of removing it. A couple of 10 millimeters across the front, has a little bracket. You also have a 10 millimeter on the high pressure side, which goes to the compressor. So go ahead and remove all those. After you get those removed, go ahead and disconnect the plug for the fan itself. This has a little clip which you can just push in and then slide the plug up from the actual it scared me. Gabe's also removing the ground just to give us a little bit more room to get the condenser out. And one of the wires was grounded for the harness for the AC. That's another reason we wanted to get that removed. And on the bottom, let's see if I can get my camera to focus. Gabe's working on it. There you go. There's a 10 millimeter bolt which is connecting the lines to the bottom of the condenser. Okay, and after you get that one removed, you can go ahead and pull the condenser out from the top. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the two lines that are connected to the compressor. It's just two 10 millimeter bolts right there. You know, I forgot to mention right now, we just did it without thinking about it. There's a nut at the very top of the line that we had to disconnect for the low pressure side. We had to use a regular wrench, and then we used a 24, I believe, for the nut side. So it was really easy. You can use Just 2 crescent wrenches if you need to get those off. Now to get the compressor off, we need to remove the belt for the power steering. So right here on the bottom, you have 112 millimeter to the bottom of the actual power steering pump itself. You have another one on top. Once those 2 are loose, you can actually spin this little adjustment knob on top, and that will lower the whole unit itself, the pump. That way we can get this belt off, and then we can get to the compressor belt. Okay, see, as he slid this down now, we spun that, and we were able to just slide the belt right off. Now to get the belt off for the compressor, you have this little like swing arm. Once you tighten this, it lifts up this pulley on the back side, which adds the tension to the belt. So we're basically going to loosen this so we can remove that tension and slide the belt off. Okay, now what Gabe is loosening, there's a little like locky nut at the bottom of the bolt right there. It's touching the base. So 12 millimeter, loosen that first. As you can see, he's spinning it there. And then we can actually loosen up the bolt for the tension.
Alright, so socket or?
Socket, short. Now on the opposite side of the compressor, let me show you right here. See that little gold piece I'm pointing at? That thing is a little adjustment nut which locks the pulley into place. Now you need to loosen that up so the pulley will fall and we can pull the belt right off. This one actually ended up being a 12 millimeter. And Gabe's laying on the ground, feeding up a ratchet through there. That looks like the easiest way to get to that. It looks like he just got it loose.
Yes, sir.
And you can see right there, it's a little difficult, but pulley dropped and off came the belt. Okay, now we're just going to unplug the compressor from the wiring harness. It has a small little clip. And then we're going to go ahead and remove the compressor itself. With the condenser out of the way, it's very easy to get to. You have 4 bolts. These are all really long. They're all 12 millimeter on all 4 corners of the compressor.
Okay,
Got it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Next we're going to move on to the receiver dryer. Just 2 10 millimeter bolts on top of it, and then disconnect the wiring harness from it. And then underneath, go ahead and disconnect the bolt here that's holding the bracket. That's what's holding the receiver dryer into place. And once you unbolt them, the lines you can just kind of move out of the way because they're not connected to anything anymore. And then pull the receiver dryer straight up. Go for it. Push it up from the bottom. This line we can see out of the way. Got it? There we go. We're going to retain the pressure switch that's on top of the receiver dryer. Now that we have everything cleared from the driver's side, we're going to move to the passenger side. You're going to see this line. This one connects to the other side over here. So we're going to remove the stock intake. When you lift it up, there's a couple of connections here that we're going to change the O-rings on. Then we're going to remove the battery because where the evaporator core connects to the wires, not the wires, but the hoses, I'm sorry. We're going to replace both O-rings at the evaporator core also, but we need to remove the evaporator core because we're going to install an expansion valve on the core as well. And then once you lift it, these are those 2 connections we're talking about changing. We want to change the O-rings in both of those since we're doing the entire AC system. We just used a couple crescent wrenches and broke both those loose. This one actually is a 17 here. These were too big for the size of wrenches that I had, so easy to get those both undone. Now just go ahead and remove your battery. He has aftermarket terminals, so they're 13 on the nuts. A lot of OEM ones are 10. Remove the battery bracket as well.
I need water.
Now we're going to remove the battery tray. Got a couple of 12 millimeter bolts in the bottom of it. We're doing that so we can pull these lines away from the firewall and the evaporator core. Those have 2 10 millimeter bolts on them. Once we get those pulled out, we're going to leave them hang. We're going to add all the O-rings as we put everything back together. Now we're going to remove the glove box. Just kind of got to squeeze in on the edges. Gabe's was repaired over there, so it has like an extra bowl if you're looking at that. Squeeze it, let it slide down, and then we need to remove the 10 millimeter bolts. You can see it right in here, and we're going to pull the glove box away from the dash. Gabe's just going to go ahead and disconnect the glove box Right here with the 4 screws, you have 2 on each side of the little mounting brackets. Okay, after the glove box is removed, we need to get this little metal bar removed. So now we need to remove this plastic cover. You have a Phillips head screw right there. Then you can just pop it off. You'll see on the back side it has these little pressure clips. There's 3 of them on there that if you just pull away from it, you should be able to salvage it. And then after you do, we can get to the hardware here. You have a 10mm and 2 8mm to get this side done. Now on the inside, you have a 10 here. There's another one that was right here that was already removed. It was already taken off this car. There's another one inside there. See it right there in the corner? We're gonna try getting those removed without having to remove the center console and see if we can just get this dropped. Okay, and that worked. After removing all the hardware, we were able to get that bracket removed. Now we need to work on getting the evaporator core dropped. Now we don't know exactly which one, so we're gonna start removing a couple of brackets. 10mm bolt right here. There's gonna be another one. It's right up under here. My finger's pointing right up to it. Then underneath, there's one in the back here. You see that gold one? We're gonna remove all 3 of those and see where that leaves us. And looking underneath, there's also another black one down here. We're gonna remove that one at the same time. Looks like it is holding on to the evaporator core. We found one more gold nut way back up here in the back. But see with his extension, you can easily grab it. He already has it on there. Looks like that one needs to come out. Then we can get the evap core off.
One more.
Or is it just the hose?
That feels like a bolt. Nope, a bolt.
One more?
Yep, it's a black.
Okay, so we have another black. Kind of like the black.
Sorry.
The black screws that are on the bottom of it. It looks like there's one more he's gonna get to. See if that lets us pull it out completely.
I'm selling my car. Yeah, pick it all the way up. Like that.
Go for it.
Alright, baby. And I know that's gotta be it. Alright.
You got that one out?
Yeah.
Now let's see if we can get it dropped. Okay, so we were able to get it out with that last bolt on the bottom. Then we just kind of fed it through the bottom. So I'm gonna put a tie strap on the wire to the evaporator core housing. So that was what's giving us difficulty getting it out. But it really wasn't that hard to pull through the bottom once it was removed. Now that everything's fully removed, we're gonna work on the expansion valve first. Got the evap core out. You're gonna have a handful of screws, Phillips head screws around the exterior of the casing. Just go ahead and remove those. Then we're gonna split the evaporator core into 2 pieces. Go ahead and separate it into the 2 halves. It should come apart. There we go. Then we're gonna, of course, retain everything else that's part of it. We're just replacing the expansion valve. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect both the fittings. This one we used a crescent wrench, and it's a 14 on the expansion valve side just to hold it in place while we disconnect that. This one we're just gonna use the crescent wrench, and I don't know if anything will fit in there. Maybe the 14. There you go. The 14 still works. Does it from that angle you had it? As long as you can hold it still. There you go. And now we need to disconnect the last fitting for the expansion valve. Now we're cutting open the area where it's like a little like thermo valve. It's this thing that's up against the line there. And it looks like it's been changed before. They used some sort of, I guess they reused the original insulation tape that was there. And they just used electrical tape to hold it into place. We're going to replace it. I actually have the cork insulation tape that's made for it, so we're going to put that on there instead of reusing this one again. So once you have that removed, just go ahead and pull everything apart. Now in the effort to change all the O-rings, we're going to remove the old ones.
Hold on.
We have all the new ones. And we dumped a little bit of the PAG oil, so we're going to just use that to lubricate them a little bit as we put them all onto their fittings. We're going to first start with these 2, and then also the one for the fitting for the top of the expansion valve. Now we're going to get this put on completely the way it was initially. And then as you're changing them, just verify you got the correct sizes and go ahead and reinstall them. Now we're going to retain that clip which holds the valve into place. And then now the tape I was talking about, this is cork insulation tape. I ordered some a long time ago for an AC job, so I have tons left over. We're just going to wrap it in that so that way it's fully insulated. There we go. The insulation tape is very pliable, so we're just able to pull it around and flex it out, and it's kind of self-adhering. It doesn't really feel like it's tacky, but once you attach it to itself, it works perfectly on there. If any of you guys are attempting this in the future, you can't really buy this in small amounts. If you need some, shoot me an email. Let me know. I have 2 rolls of this that I got really inexpensive a long time ago. Maybe you could just spot me the price of a stamp and I'll throw a little bit in there for you. Now we're going to put the core back together and get that reinstalled into the dash. Now installing everything is just the reversal of removal. Gabe's going to start with the compressor, get to the condenser, receiver dryer, change all the O-rings at the same time. And then when we're done, we're going to add the required oil to the compressor. Then we're going to vacuum the system, and then we're going to add the refrigerant. I'm going to let him get to work on changing out all of the parts and O-rings, getting those put back together. Then we'll get the gauge set hooked up. Okay, we got everything installed on the front half. Receiver dryer. It's really relatively easy reinstalling all these parts. He's working on the evap core right now. You see him pushed it through. We're going to change those O-rings. And it looks good.
Okay, it went through?
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
And we're by no means pros, but we were searching online trying to find some information. The compressor came with oil in it. The instructions said to dump it out. We dumped all of it out, drained it, spun the actual compressor clutch so we can get as much of the oil out as possible. And then we added 4 ounces back to that, which is about 120 milliliters. And then for the condenser, we added another 0.5 ounces. So we have about 4.5 ounces in the system. If you look online, they say there's different kinds of quantities depending on what's replaced, what's changed. If there's still like an old evaporator core, you're supposed to flush evaporator cores as well. You can flush them, and you can also do the condenser. But we're going to try this out with what we have and what we're working with today. And once he finishes that up, we'll get the gauges connected and we're going to pull a vac on the system. Okay guys, we got everything finished up. Went ahead and reconnected the gauges. Once you get them connected, you can go ahead and open up all 4 ports, high and low side, and turn both of these to the on position. Then we're going to attempt to vacuum the system. We're going to let it run for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. And then once it's done, we'll be able to let it sit. And we're going to check to make sure it's holding vac and not that there's any leaks anywhere in the system.
That's all the shit, huh?
Okay, so we got the vacuum pump on. And now you're going to see here that it's pulling it down and pulling a vac on the system. We're just going to let that run for a little while. Now that it's holding vac, we're going to try to fill it. I have this valve that you pick up. This, we're going to screw right into the top of the cans. At the same time, when you put that on, you're going to screw down the handle and it's going to puncture the valve. But before doing that, the system's holding a vac and we have both of the valves closed off. This yellow hose is going to connect to this particular handle, and then when we have it hooked up, we're going to purge the line, so any of the atmosphere that's in there. So by doing that, once we have it hooked up, just going to use a little screwdriver and we're going to squeeze this a couple times and we're going to purge the system. It's good. Go ahead and puncture it. A little bit loose somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Start the car?
No, not yet. Go ahead and loosen the valve.
Oh, you gotta purge.
Yeah. Now we want to purge it. So grab something we can use. Just make sure we do it away from you though, is also. Maybe like one of the little picks or something. Should be good. No, that's enough. Let's see this, try this. Go for a little bit. Was that actual?
Yeah.
So that was good? We're good then.
Let me see.
Does it feel cold?
No.
Okay.
Not really, but it feels like oil. Okay.
Okay, now after we purged the system, what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn on the car, turn the AC on full blast, and then you're only going to open the low pressure side. That's how you fill up the AC system. We do not want to open up the high pressure side while we're filling it up. Go ahead and open this one up. It's good. Okay, so we finished putting the first can in. We can obviously feel a difference already. The low pressure side is cool. It is 105 degrees out right now. And the center vent, can you guys see it? If I can get to focus, we're looking at right around 65 degrees coming out. So we're shooting for about 45, it's supposed to be between 40 and 44 degrees, but that's only with one can. So to put the second can in, you now want to close off the valve. We don't want to let any of it escape. The high pressure side has stayed closed this entire time. Now we can disconnect the can, and then we're going to do the same thing about purging this can as well as we add the rest of the refrigerant into the system. Go ahead and purge it too. Oh, did you puncture it?
Yes.
And then open it. And then purge it a little bit. Let me do this so the can it'll shoot.
Yeah, the red one's hot as hell.
Good?
That was open.
Open it. Open it. For a ride, we're testing the temperatures. You can see it's getting down right at about 45, 46-ish degrees on this thermometer. A little bit out of the green area sometimes. And then of course when we come to a stop it'll rise a little bit, but it seems to be working okay right now. There it is, guys. We got it all finished up. Took it for a ride. Gabe's happy with the temps. I don't know if we can get it any cooler than that after driving it. But hope this helped you guys out in case you need to help rebuild your AC system.